basically you should know that कि NGOs, it's not कि today NGOs have their records. If you see in past also, if you see NGOs, so they had played vested interest role. Like say that कि if you take in Ukraine, if you take in Georgia, etc. So Rose Revolution, Velvet Revolution, this is how it is said. Basically, Western countries, they try to create problems in developing countries through civil society organizations. Yes. Including in our country also, will find that ki how missionaries of charities, will find that Christian missionaries that you can find. Then some other types of organizations, they get fund from foreign countries. Traditional sense, if you talk. So that traditional sense, let's say ki Islamic countries, they send funds in India and they funds Islamic education in our country. They fund Islamic education in our country. You should know this. So Islamic countries, Arabian countries, they send lots of funds in our country through different channels for construction of mosque, you can consider, madrasas, you can say that, Islamic education, or other such, let's say that, welfare activities. And then at times there has been allegation of conversion. Similarly, let's say Western countries also, they send lots of funds to Christian missionaries, and there are different types of Christian missionaries working for not only, let's say, charity and helping people, but also health, education, and let's say other sectors will find this. This is traditional matter. Recently, you know that Mother Teresa organization, missionary, let's say, it's for a temporary, let's say, that means temporarily its registration was postponed. ऐसा कुछ हुआ था. Ministry of Home Affairs temporarily postponed its registration or something renewal. You know what happened? The issue was raised in UK Parliament. Yes. So this way it is a connection. It was temporary. Just there were some procedural whatever the factors, but temporarily its license was either postponed or something happened, and then one member of British Parliament raised the matter in British Parliament. Yes. So this is how we'll find that it's not that we are talking these issues today. These are not new issues. They are old issues. This. But yes, security challenges, etc. have changed. And concern for transparency, accountability, that also has increased. This both things we can consider. Role of NGOs also has increased. This also. So in 2011, let's say UPA government time, IB Intelligence Bureau published a report. Means on the basis of IB, it was reported in newspaper how civil society organizations were trying to create trouble in India. This. And Kudankulam power plant, that nuclear power plant in southern state. Then there was another power plant in Maharashtra. So that time government was giving lots of emphasis on nuclear energy. This you should know. Because Indo-US nuclear deal, success deal. Indo-US nuclear deal, when it was signed in 2007, it was considered as one of the most important achievements in foreign relations. Yes. So Indo-US nuclear deal became successful nuclear deal. So we wanted to increase our nuclear power energy. Means nuclear energy. And that time plan was that nuclear energy would have 10% share in total power generation. Hence, we need to expand nuclear power plants, nuclear energy, bring participation of private sector. India entered in also a contract with Canada, Russia, other countries, for nuclear energy. वो भी एक टाइम था, बस डैम पे स्क्यूब टैंट फिश जिसको बोलते हैं. दिस सो थोड़े दिनों के बाद अब आप सुनते नहीं होंगे, अभी भी वही है जहां हम लोग पढ़ते थे, 3% के आसपास। नो, न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी का शेयर, न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी का शेयर टोटल एनर्जी शेयर में
3%
यस। सैंक्शन होना अलग बात है, कमीशनिंग होना अलग बात है। Basically, thorium reserves we have, thorium reserves, huge thorium reserves we have. So to utilize thorium reserve, you need to go for 3 stages of nuclear power. This, once it used to be quite in news debate, basically you'll find that. But now again and again, let's see, it remains the same. So civil society organizations were protesting against the nuclear power plant. Nuclear energy, what it has risk, radiation. The Kudankulam power plant, even Kalam went to convince protesters, but they were not convinced. One vested interest was found is it was protest was supported by foreign, let's say that countries, especially the companies which are in renewable sector. Renewable sector. Why? If India will go nuclear, it will have less reliance on renewable energy. It will not import their products. If it does not go, let's say that nuclear means such high emphasis, it will give emphasis on renewable energy. And then when it will give emphasis on renewable energy, it will import its products. That link was established. So basically now it is very complex, you can say that, foreign hand. Even in farmers protest also, Ford Foundation was linked. Foreign countries, let's say, linked. Same thing, India against corruption, Ford Foundation was linked. This fund is coming from foreign countries. Same thing, let's say the Popular Front of India, hijab ban protest. And Popular Front of India, one organization. So basically, we cannot deny the fact that there is no vested interest. There is vested interest, which can be internal and external, and that takes the advantage of protest by people, and it encourages that protest. Suppose people want to protest one day, it may encourage to protest for 2 days. It has planned to protest in one city, they may encourage to protest in other cities because funds coming, they are supporting by funds. That is how it was highlighted. When it was highlighted, the government started regulating civil society organizations. First, let's say law was 1976 law was replaced by 2010 law, because to make it more present oriented. And then when present government came to power, since then at least 2 to 3 times they have amended Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, this to regulate civil society organization. Now then, what are those major provisions? Yes. So basically, let's say that there are other provisions, but not important. Largely, let's say that the last three provisions are more important. That they have to have a dedicated account only with State Bank of India. That's also a Delhi branch to receive foreign funding. Yes. And cannot spend more than 20% of the funds as administrative expenses. It means their operational, let's say, operational expenditure, whatever the NGO is, पहले ये 50% था. Before this, so the limit was that they can spend 50% of their funds on their administrative expenses as administrative expenses, but now it has been reduced to 20%. This then have to seek renewal, let's say, every 5 years. This license. This. So, is it right? What do you think? Yes?
Yes, sir, it is for having transparency and accountability. If they are doing something good, they should be open about it and have that transparency.
Holding financial accountability is very important in this case. Yeah. We see. Yes. Because it is more likely a domain of like money laundering and all that happens a lot in this case. So holding financial accountability is a very, very like, good initiative in this case.
See, on the one hand, we promote for business sector ease of doing business. There is delicensing. So, why there should be licensing for civil society organization? Isn't it license and inspector Raj? This. Why every 5 years one civil society organization should seek renewal? This it reminds of license Raj and inspector Raj. Because for business sector you are having delicensing. This and you promote ease of doing business. Civil societies are non-profit institutions. Why there should be so harsh condition? This first. A civil society can have only account in State Bank of India, Delhi. Does it apply to other sectors also? Why does it apply only to civil society organization? What is that compulsion that you want to have account only in Delhi? This, although business sector, any other organization can have account in any bank it wishes. It is, isn't it too much of this regulation and centralization? This. Then when you limit, let's say 50% to 20%, isn't it so drastic? Then if you reduce their administrative expenses, so they would not be able to expand themselves. When any NGO want to expand its work, it will have to hire more people. Its administrative expenses would increase. But when we fix the limit of 20%, so it will not be able to increase its activities. This. Next, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Right. Basically, let's say ki bars. Right. Any fund which is of political nature. The term they use is called political nature. And Foreign Contribution Regulation Act bars funding to political parties. Foreign funding to political parties. Basically, it was brought in 1976 to regulate foreign funding to political parties. Yes. So, political parties were not supposed to receive foreign funding. Any fund which is in political nature is barred under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Now, political nature is very subjective. What government has started doing, that if civil society members are protesting, so that protest is getting linked to political nature. Yes. It is being linked to political nature. And that's why they are being charged by this, then that, enforcement direct, etc. This. A civil society organization is supposed, as we have told that, their role is to protest. Their role is advocacy. Their role is to create awareness. Even Supreme Court has told that just for public protest, you cannot, let's say that bar foreign funding. Means you cannot link political nature and protest. Protest cannot be considered as a political nature as per foreign funding. Political nature should be more specifically defined. This. Meanwhile, government has amended Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and as of now, foreign funding is allowed to political parties. That corporate having 50% share, let's say that in foreign investment, this when they are investing in any, let's say, venture in our country, so there are some conditions. As per original Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, funding to political parties was barred. Gradually, by amending Foreign Contribution Act, now foreign funding to political party is allowed. And it is not regulated. The way regulation applies to civil society to maintain website, file at ITR and this and that, the same should apply to political parties if they are receiving any foreign funding. This, because if foreign funding to civil society is threat to national security, तो foreign funding to political parties, how it is not a threat? Right. But it is a less known thing. This is how, that is how the criticism that has come to this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Then let's say that what is happening? Many civil society organizations have not sought renewal to avoid any trouble. This is so. Many have stopped receiving foreign funding. Even IIT Delhi has also done it. Many such institutions have now, they are not, let's say, simply they have withdrawn themselves. Right. You should know that even Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru also get foreign funding. Right. Ford Foundation funds. Various courses, research in different institutions, higher education, are funded by foreign such kind of donor agencies. Yes. In fact, most of the research activities are funded by foreign donor agencies. Government कितना फंड पैसा देती है रिसर्च के लिए पता ही है आपको. This. So when they are not seeking, it will have a consequence, serious consequence on the research activities, other activities, but that we are not talking. How much, let's say that challenge, etc. it will have. Rather, what we are trying to say is that it is too harsh for civil society organizations. There is no denying fact that civil society organizations should be regulated. No one is saying that they should not be regulated. But regulation is about creating level playing field. Regulation is about facilitation. Regulation is about ease of doing business rather than killing business. Right. Regulation is about creating a healthy environment. But this regulation is about killing civil society organizations. Especially those organizations which may not be ideologically in sync with the ruling establishment. That's why every 5 years your license would be. So if your activities are found to be somehow against the government, so what will happen? So ऐसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस है जिनका की लाइसेंस फर्स्ट टाइम कैंसिल किया गया है 40 इयर्स में. एंड सेंटर फॉर लेट्स से द साइंस एंड रिसर्च, ये बहुत ही रिनाउंड इंस्टीट्यूशन है रिसर्च, उसके लाइसेंस उन्होंने पोस्टपोन किया है फॉरेन फंडिंग के लिए ओवर 180 days और समथिंग दिस. So there are several such even renowned civil society organizations which are even NHRC has also formed their groups. United Nations has. In fact, United Nations High Commissions on Human Rights, you know that. It has given a report and it has also criticized. The criticism of this step has even gone to United Nations. There is International Commission of Jurists. It has published a report on Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. It has highlighted its flaws. International Commission of Jurists. This you should know that. And it has given recommendations to what should be done. It's basically what we will tell in minimizing this is that simple we can say it is about it is too tight regulation. The regulation should be done. There should be regulation, but it should not be done the way we are doing it. It is very harsh. Right. On the one hand, you are having this regulation, plus there are two more aspects that have been brought. Now, civil society organizations, any civil society organization that gets 5 crore or 4 crore something, I guess 4 crore or something fund from the government, its middle functionaries will be known as public servant under Prevention of Corruption Act. The Prevention of Corruption Act will also apply. Second, third factor is called any NGO receiving 10 lakh plus foreign fund is going to come under Lokpal purview. Now, जब पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की बात आती है, राइट, उसके रेगुलेशन की बात आती है, मीडिया की रेगुलेशन की बात आती है, तो मीडिया इज लेस रेगुलेटेड. Political parties are not regulated, but civil societies are harshly regulated. This is a problem. If you know only civil society, then you can say that. But if you do not know the history of civil society, if you do not know that their, let's say, activities, so as we have told that this way it will affect civil society, because civil society is cooperation conflict. That is how Amartya Sen says. Cooperation means it works with state, and conflict means it also criticizes state. This, it works with state and it also criticizes state wherever state is found to be acting arbitrarily. That is how debates you can find in media, that whether we are silencing civil society or are we silencing dissent voice. This you can. So that is how, let's say, we have to raise a bit concern, but still there will be recognition that they should be regulated, but they should not be so harshly regulated that there is this civil society organization, the sector gets its, let's say that stifled, means people will have less interest in coming in civil society, and then ultimately civil society sector will be weakened, and when it is weakened, so you know that democracy suffers. Ultimately democracy suffers. This we can say. And that is what we can summarize. So let's write on this. The steps which have been taken. The steps which have been taken to regulate civil society organizations are considered too harsh to uphold financial accountability, and maintain a delicate balance with national security. In fact, two more steps have been taken to regulate civil society organizations. Two more steps have been taken to regulate civil society organization. First, their middle level functionaries will be known as public servant under Prevention of Corruption Act. Second, they have been brought under purview of Lokpal. If they receive 10 lakh plus foreign funding. Even the criticisms have come from First, International Commission for Jurists. International Commission for Jurists. And second, United Nations High Commissioner, United Nations High Commissioners for Human Rights. For human rights. The regulation has following flaws. The regulation has following flaws. First, it is too harsh for civil society organizations. Civil society organizations. Next, it is an emerging sector. It is an emerging sector and informal in nature. Informal in nature. Hence, formalization will take its time. Formalization will take its time. Next, having account only in Delhi. Having account only in Delhi. In SBI. SBI is act of centralization. Centralization. Which makes unviable for civil society. Unviable for civil society. Present in different parts of the country. Present in different parts of the country. Next, when they can spend only 20%, when they can spend only 20% or as administrative expenses, it affects their expansion. It affects their expansion. Expansion. Next. Seeking license every 5 years. Seeking license every 5 years is like introduction of license and inspector Raj. License and inspector Raj. Next, they are present in research development. They are present in research and development, and they largely rely on foreign funding due to lack of government funding. Lack of government funding. Due to lack of government funding. Like Greenpeace has closed its office. Greenpeace has closed its office in India. And also Amnesty International India. Also Amnesty International India. Even renowned civil society organizations like Center for Policy Research, recently faced cancellation of its license for receiving foreign funding. for receiving foreign funding. Change paragraph. Regulation is important. Regulation is important. That is, no one is saying that civil society should not be regulated. But regulation should be more about first, upholding financial accountability. Next, promoting transparency. Next, protecting civil society sector, means protecting NGO sector. Next, creating a balance between national security and financial accountability. However, the present regulation shows that there is lack of delicate balance. At the same time, when one has comparative analysis, one can get understanding that NGOs are being targeted. For speaking their mind. Like first, the same Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, by amendments has been made soft on political parties. That now they can receive foreign funding. But they are not subject to the same regulation. Next, political parties and media are under less regulation. Next, for corporate sector, there is promotion of ease of doing business. For corporate sector, there is promotion of ease of doing business. And therefore, the regulation to civil society organization should create a more robust environment. for their effective functioning and constructive role rather than targeting for their voice. Targeting for their voice. That is, the term political nature under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, the term political nature under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act needs to be specifically defined as any dharna and protest by civil society is political nature but cannot be considered basis for receiving foreign funds as stated by Supreme Court. That is how you can see this. So there is a bit technicality. Basically, let's see. Technicality is that let me tell. Foreign Contribution Regulation Act bars political nature of funding. This you should know that. Which is more prelims oriented. So it bars or it bans, you can say that. It bans any fund which is political nature. So what can be political nature? Funding to political parties. This funding to political parties. Now, government has tried to interpret political nature because protest is also political nature. Any protest, because civil society is a tool of democracy, its activity will also be political nature. So when they have been spending their funds related to protest, suppose there is a civil society, it is protesting. So when it protests and it funds that protest, so then it is, let's say, it cannot fund that protest. But protest is political nature. But civil society तो काम ही है उसका protest करना. It is their work. How can you take it out? This we have written there. The advocacy, protest, dharna, strike. This. So when they are funding, now it is being considered. There are very, let's say that thin line of demarcation. You are funding the protest as you want to support the protest and you do not have vested interest, or you are funding the protest as you have the vested interest. Right. So अब मान लो इजराइल में प्रोटेस्ट हो रहा है, लोग प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं. अब जो लोग डेमोक्रेसी में बिलीव रखते हैं किसी भी कंट्री के, अगर उनसे सिंपैथी रखते हैं और उनको थोड़ा पैसा उन्होंने दिया है, तो वो दोनों तरीके से आप इंटरप्रेट कर सकते हो. दैट कि यू हैव वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट टू डिस्टेबलाइज इजराइल, ऐसे भी इंटरप्रेट किया जा सकता है. एंड सेकेंड दैट कि यू वांट टू सपोर्ट डेमोक्रेटिक कॉज. दिस हाउ विल डिमार्केट ए लाइन. इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन प्रोटेस्ट, बहुत सारे लोगों ने तो जॉब छोड़ के आया. शुड नो दिस. यूएस से जॉब छोड़ के लोग आए. दिस उनको लगा कि अब इंडिया बदल जाएगा. तो मतलब कि इट इज चेंजिंग, तो लेट्स ज्वाइन टू चेंज इंडिया. इसलिए कि बहुत सारे लोग छोड़ के गए हैं रिग्रेट में, ये बदलेगा नहीं कभी. तो उनको लगा कि अब बदल जाएगा, तो लेट्स प्रमोट। इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन मूवमेंट में बहुत सारे लोगों ने फॉरेन जॉब, अच्छे से जॉब कारपोरेट सेक्टर में छोड़ के आए थे, प्रोटेस्ट में पार्टिसिपेट किया उन्होंने, जिसको जितना पैसा हुआ पैसा दिया उन्होंने। अब आप उसको दो तरीके से इंटरप्रेट कर सकते हैं। यू कैन इंटरप्रेट कि देयर इज ए फॉरेन हैंड टू डिस्टेबलाइज द कंट्री, और पीपल आर सपोर्टिंग फॉर डेमोक्रेटिक cause. That is how you have to understand. So we should protect security, but not at the cost of killing NGO sector. That is how government should have the concern. And since civil society organization, basically Center for Policy Research ने एक रिसर्च कुछ पब्लिश किया था, वो कुछ उस पर गवर्नमेंट को क्रिटिसाइज किया था उन्होंने। भाई रिसर्च होगा तो जो फैक्ट्स होगा फैक्ट्स होगा, फिर वो रिसर्च तो होगा नहीं। रिसर्च विल स्पीक एज पर द व्हाट फैक्ट्स यू फाइंड रादर देन व्हाट यू वांट, फिर दैट इज नॉट रिसर्च। रिसर्च विल ऑल्सो सफर, दिस इज शुड नो दैट। साइंटिफिक टेम्पर डिमांड्स लिबर्टी, yes, there cannot be scientific temper without liberty and freedom. yes, इसीलिए तो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज में लिबर्टी हुआ नहीं, फ्रीडम हुआ नहीं। Anyhow, so that is what we have concluded. Let's say if we see positive aspect, we should regulate. No one is saying कि we should not regulate. Government should regulate. जैसे आप लाइसेंस आप 5 साल की जगह 10 साल कर दो, आपको रिन्यूअल चाहिए 5 साल, तो बहुत ही वो है, हो गया ना एक तरीके से, राइट। रिन्यूअल क्यों होना चाहिए? आपको लगा कि वो ठीक नहीं है, आप अपने आप कैंसिल कर दो। इसलिए कि हर बार रिन्यूअल सीख करना, अप्लाई करना अपने आप में हैमर हैंगिंग ओवर द हेड, हैमर हैंगिंग ओवर द हेड। आपको अभी नहीं पता चलेगा, जब आप खुद उस सेक्टर में होगे तो पता चलेगा। आपने 5 साल के लिए कोई एक्टिविटी किया, पता चला कि आपका लाइसेंस ही कैंसिल हो गया। This is how it is. It is like, let's say that you can start feeling like something like it is very frightening, I will tell you. This अभी गवर्नमेंट ने एजुकेशन वाले के लिए, कोचिंग सेंटर्स के लिए रेगुलेशन के लिए निकाला है, पढ़ा होगा आपने थोड़ा बहुत, ठीक है, तो उसका भी यही हाल होगा। हाँ, 16 ईयर से कम बच्चा है कोचिंग नहीं पढ़ सकता। क्यों भाई, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? अजीब बात है। Why 16 years old, below 16 year person cannot join coaching? But एक तरफ pace of learning is increasing and you are going to that backward aspect. अच्छी बात है, फिर रिच क्लास के लोग ही बेनिफिट उठाएंगे, right? You can criticize coachings whatever you can, but for middle class people, poor section of society, coaching centers provide lifeline to compete against those students who are from affluent families, educated in good schools and colleges. This. My true brothers are BTech because of coaching institutions. Because after 10+2, they did coaching and then they qualified. They could never qualify only by just 10+2. This. So if you want to change, you change first public education. Yes. Anyhow, but these are all bigger issues, you'll know that. कि गवर्नमेंट, लेट्स से उधर कोटा में 2-4 लोगों ने सुसाइड किया, उन्होंने बस राइट मास सुसाइड का रूल लेके आ गए। बिलो 16 इयर्स यू कैन नॉट डू कोचिंग। कोचिंग का डेफिनेशन क्या है? फिर वो बोलते हैं 50-50, कुछ ऐसा ही उन्होंने लाया है। 50 स्टूडेंट्स पहले अपने स्कूल का तो स्ट्रेंथ मेंटेन कर लो. Teacher and taught is ratio. So regulation, let's say, regulation is always, always, regulation always gives scope for corruption. That is how you should know that. This is what we can talk about civil society organization. The voluntariness will be lost. Here people will not come in voluntary sector. They will avoid coming in voluntary sector.